All right, a good Erev Shabbos, everyone. As we are sponsored by AB Spry for the soldiers, for safety of Klal Yisrael, the recovery of hostages, refuah of those that are ill, and the safety of Klal Yisrael all over the globe, especially for Issazev ben Yuta, Shimon Klein, Lina Nishmas Asher ben Yehuda, Gittel Bas Shimon Pinchas, Irving Fishbaum for himself, Isser ben Rezel, Avigraya ben Rivka, Meir ben Chayesara. We welcome in Aaron Swade joining us, Irving Fishbaum, Mel Zachter. We welcome in Stephen Holtzman, Yitzi Fuchs, Eli Udell, Ben Zion Cohn, Shimon Klein, Berish Gesseman, Baruch Ian, Shalom Fogel, Dr. Guy, Ruvain Palak, Yitzi Padower, Yitzi Muller, Moshe Lehman, Ilya Shutman, Rabbi Kranz, Jay Siegel is trying to tune in to us, and we welcome in David Helfkat on Coalition. Here in the shul, we have a very, very fine Eilam with Saba, Ruvain Shanit, Reb Rich Lenner, Reb Kramer, Reb Avram, Reb Blumenfeld, and Gedalia Engel, one short of a minyan, and we are holding ahead. We're ahead tonight. We're holding on Daf Samach Gimel Amud Aleph, and we're holding by the Ema, which is, believe it or not, 9 lines from the top. 9 lines from the top of Daf Samach Gimel. I shouldn't even tell you. I mean, it's unbelievable. As Jay Siegel finally connected in with us, the Gemara had said that it said shar and chamar, but if it only said shar, we would only know that which is permitted on the mizbeach. So then it says chamar, but if it would say only chamar, we would know only those that are kaddish b'bechayra. So the Gemara says, but if it only says shar and chamar together, I only know that which is metame b'maga u'b'masa. But how do you know oifas that are only metame begodim abeis abliya when you swallow? So the Gemara says we learn out oifas from seh. So that's what we learn out from the extra word seh. But says the Gemara be'ema la'asiyah oifas tahirim. Maybe it only comes to include the kosher birds. Dumya de seh, similarly to the seh that it has some tumah. The metame begodim abeis abliya. Aval oifas tameim, like a raven, like a vulture, the lesbu tuma, the loy metame even begodim abeis abliya. Even if you swallow it, you won't become tummy. Your clothing won't become tummy. Maybe light. Maybe that's not included. So the Gemara says kol ribuyehu. It says kol devar pesha, for any matter of trespass. And therefore, the kol is a riboy. It includes everything. Says the Gemara, but wait a second. By Meiser Sheni, where it tells you what items you're allowed to buy with the money of Meiser Sheni, it says kol over there, and it's not all inclusive, but rather it's only part of a klal prat klal. It's only part of a generalization, specification, generalization. As we welcome in Abe Arbach joining us, says the Gemara, the kalecha, the cost of kol ribuyu, wherever it says kol is an ribuy, is it inclusive? V'agabe meiser, by meiser sheni d'chsiv kol, v'kedar shinon le b'chlal prat. We learn it out not as an all-inclusive word, but rather it's just a simple generalization. The Tanya, for we learned in a brayso, and you shall give the money of Meiser Sheni for all that your soul desires. Klal, that's a generalization. Babakar, but sign for the cattle, the sheep, or wine and strong beverage. Prat, and whatever your soul requests, because of a klal. Klal of product, klal, generalization, specification, generalization. We only include that which is similar to bakar tzayin, yayin v'shecher. Ma prat mafurish pri. It's a fruit from a fruit because an animal comes from the mother and wine comes from the grape. and Vigdule Karka grows from the ground. An animal is considered also to grow from the ground because it derives its sustenance from grazing. So you see that we don't say that the b'chol asher tisholcha nafshecha comes to include everything. That's all inclusive. So the Gemara says, I didn't tell you b'chol, I told you kol. Imrei b'chol, that's klala, that's a generalization. Kol, but the straight word kol, that's ribuyu, that's inclusive. That's one answer. Gemara gives another answer. I made a bracha already. Another answer. Kol, even the word kol is a klalu, it's only a generalization. But this kol over here is also superfluous. Miu, says the Gemara, kol dahacha, the kol over here, ribuyu, it's all inclusive because it's totally superfluous. It already has a klal of product klal. If man gives to his friend to guard, that's klal. Kesef kalim, money or utensils, prat. Lishmar, to protect, hadav klal. V'isol kedai techai al kol dvar pesha. Nami lechlal of prat hudasa. It's also coming to tell me just a simple generalization specification. Then why does it have to write it in, why does it have to make two generalization specifications? So there, I'll call dvar pesha lamali shmami no ribuyu. It's all inclusive. So then the Gemara says, well, if it's all inclusive, then why does it have to say chamor and shar? Why does it say all of the specifications? One is to exclude karka. There's no kefil by karka. And one comes to exclude servants. One comes to exclude notes, which doesn't have intrinsic value. Salma, remember it said four things. Shar, Chamor, Sev, Salma. Salma, L'ma'ute davar she'enoi mesuyim. That comes to exclude if it's a piece of clothing that doesn't have a siman. Because you see, if Baruch finds a lost article and claims that it was stolen, so he said he would have to pay kefil. That's only if he finds a lost article that has siman. If he found a lost article that didn't have a siman, then he doesn't have to pay kefil because he would be able to keep it. So there would be no chiyuv over there. Says the Gemara, and why does it say al kol aveda for any lost article? Reb Chia bar Abba. Reb Chia bar Abba, Reb Yochanan, hatoyin tainis ganav ba'aveda. If, let's say, Baruch finds my Rolex watch, and it's a good one. It's a good one. $9,000, even used, right? So he finds my Rolex watch, and then he claims that it's stolen. And we find it by him. The Mishalim Tashlume Kefa. Shenemar al kol davar aveda, al kol aveda, for anything that was lost. If he says that it was stolen, asher yomer, which he says that it was stolen, so then he has to pay kefil.
Can I ask something on this before we go on?
No. So the Gemara now, as we will see, the Gemara is going to show us, and there's a lot of variables over here, so it gets a little tricky. The Gemara is going to show us there's a difference between if Baruch is, he went to a school of criminality, so he's our criminal for the evening. You have to watch out for these guys. So there's a difference if Baruch was a Shimer or if he was. It's a difference if he was a Shimer or if he found something. So let's keep an eye on that difference. Tnan Hosam. Heichon Pikdaini. I asked Baruch, I deposited by you my Rolex. Where is it? Amalei Ovid. He says it was lost. Mashbi'achani. I put you to an oath. V'amar Amen. And he says Amen, which means he accepts the oath. And now, okay, it wasn't a Rolex. I left by him 6 cowboy steaks. And 6 cowboy steaks, it's about $540. You know, it's really good stuff. Aged meat. What's that fancy meat called? Aged is a name for it. Huh? No, but there's a type. No. Okay. Anyway, it's not in our range. None of us are on that range. But yeah, right. Yeah. But witnesses testify that my cowboy steaks did not get lost, but Baruch ate them. Mishalem es hakeren. He only has to pay the principal. Hoida al pi atzmai. If he admits about it himself, now remember he swore falsely. So if he swore and he admitted, then mishalem keren chaymesh v'asham. He has to pay the principal plus a fifth. That's the penalty for swearing falsely, and he has to bring a guilt offering. So now notice over here that what was Baruch's claim? Not that it got stolen. He claimed that it got lost. You got to follow this. He said it got lost. So I put him to an oath, and then we find that it wasn't lost, that he ate it. So here we're saying that he only has to pay the keren. He doesn't have to say kefil, although in actuality he stole it. But he doesn't have to pay kefil. So toyin tainis ovad, he doesn't pay kefil. If he admits, then he has to pay because he swore falsely. He has to pay the keren, chaimish, and bring a guilt offering. Heichon pikdaini. But now I ask Baruch, where's my steaks? Amalei nignav. What do you mean? What do you mean? Shalom Fogel stole it from me. So mashbiachani, I put him to an oath. V'amar amen. And witnesses testify that he stole it. Right? It wasn't Shalom that stole it, but rather that Baruch took it for himself. Mishalom tashlume kefil, he has to pay kefil. If he admits, so because he swore falsely, Mishalom keren chaimish v'asham. So Kitani Mia, one thing we see over here is B'toyin Tainis Ganev the B'shalom Tashlume Kefil, where if he claims that it was stolen, he has to pay Kefil. Aval B'toyin Tainis Ovid, but if he claims that it was lost, then Lo Mishalom Tashlume Kefil. Va'afilu, and here, notice this, the only time Baruch has to pay Kefil is only where he swore. He only pays kefil if he accompanied it, that I put him to an oath. So the Gemara says we got a lot of now variables to find the source. First of all, how do we know that there's a difference between, basically, what's the difference? Baruch is a crook. What's the difference if he says it was lost or if he stole it? Or somebody stole it. But there is a difference. If he says it was lost, then we find it by him or he ate it, he pays only the keren. But if he says it was stolen, then he pays kefil. Also, the only time he pays kefil where he says it was stolen is only if I put him to an oath. But if he just says it and we find it by him, then he doesn't pay kefil. So, Menani Mili, how do we know this? The Tan Rabbanan, the pasuk says, Im Yamotzei Haganav, if you find the Ganav, that means B'toyin Tanis Ganav HaKosim Medaber. That's talking about that where Baruch claims that the deposit was stolen, that if we find that he's the Ganav, not that Shalom stole it, but if we find that he's the Ganav, that he has to pay kefil. Or maybe it means that if we find Shalom, that Shalom stole it, the Ganav himself, that Shalom pays kefil. And it's not talking about, in other words, believe it or not, Baruch was telling the truth. Like Rashi says, and we find that Shalom stolen, and it's coming to tell me that the Ganav pays kefil. When the pasuk says, if you don't find the Ganav, so then it says in the pasuk later, and we're going to say that this is talking about that if we don't find that it was stolen, but rather Baruch stole it himself. So, one second, let me just see what the aleph is. So, Havi Omer, it's clear that the subject matter of the pasuk is B'toyin Tanis Ganav HaKosim Medaber. That's what the whole pasuk is talking about. The Gemara is going to ask, so if they're both talking about where Baruch is a shakran, so then why do we need two psukim? So we'll talk about that. Why does it have to say Im Yamatzei Haganav, Im Lo Yamatzei Haganav? But it's talking about that where Baruch claims that it was stolen, and then we found it by him, then he has to pay kefil. And that pasuk is talking about it with a shvuah. So you see that it has to be with a shvuah. Tanyida, we learned in another brisa. Im Yamatzei Haganav, if you find the Ganav, B'Ganav Atzma HaKosim Medaber. That if he says Shalom stole it, so Shalom has to pay kefil. Maybe it means where Baruch claimed that it was stolen, but it turns out that he stole it. If you don't find a thief, but rather Baruch did it himself, so therefore, what's the first pasuk? That's if we find that Taka Shalom stole it. Okay, so it's a question how to learn the psukim as we welcome in Neil Foreman and Larry Tuchinski and Richard Rosenzweig. But the Kuli Alma Mias, Im Lo Yamatzei Haganav, if you don't find a thief, but rather Baruch stole it himself, B'toyin Tanis Ganav Ksiv. My mashma. How do we explain it? Amarava, the way to explain it is, Im Lo Yamatzei Kamay Sha'amar. If we don't find it to be like he claimed that it was stolen, Elashu Atzmai Ganvai, but rather he himself stole it, Yeshalim Shnai. Umenolan de B'Shvua. And how do we know that it's only if it was accompanied with an oath, where I said, Baruch, I put you to an oath, and he says, Amen. The Tanya v'nikrev balabayis el Elohim, and we bring the owner to the judge, l'shvua. The owner meaning the one who it was deposited by. The nikrev balabayis Elohim, the homeowner, We bring him to the judge. L'shvua. Atam l'shvua ein eladin. Maybe it just means that I bring him to court to litigate. It says Gemara, nema shlichus yad lamata. If he stretches his hand at it below, and the lamata is one is talking about a shomer chinam, and one is talking about a shomer sacher. So it says shlichus yad lamata. It says shlichus yad below by a shomer sacher. V'nema shlichus yad lamala by a shomer chinam. Mala halon, just like by a shomer sacher, it's talking about a shvua. Mala halon l'shvua, afkan l'shvua. So okay, so the brisa that learns imlo yimatzi aganav, that it's not like Baruch said, we don't find any fictitious shalom fogel, but rather he stole it himself. He pays kefil, and the mandia and the first pasuk im yimatzi aganav is if Shalom did steal it, so that works. But if both im yimatzi aganav and im lo yimatzi aganav is talking about toyin tanas ganav, why do we need two psukim? So the bishlam elamandi yom echad beganav echad b'toyin tanas ganav hainu d'chsiv trei kroi. One is talking about where Baruch was telling the truth and Shalom stole it, and one is talking about where Baruch wasn't telling the truth and he himself stole it. But both are talking about where Baruch misappropriated it and he told a lie. So trei kroi lamali. Why do we need two psukim for toyin tanas ganav? Amar chad l'me'utei tanas ovid. Oh, remember we said that the only time Baruch pays kefil is where he claims that Shalom stole it. But if he claims that he lost it and we find it by him, he only pays keren. How do we know that? How do we know that? We know that because it says it a second time, toyin tanas ganav, l'me'utei tanas ovid, to tell us that if he claims that it was lost, then he doesn't pay kefil. According to Man Yom that says one is talking about a ganav and one is talking about tanas ganav, then how do you know to be mamayit tanas ovid? The lo miyater, it's not extra. The mute tanas ovid minole. How do I know that the only time Baruch pays kefil is only where he claims it was stolen, not where he claims it was lost? Says Gemara, he knows it because it could have said ganav and it says haganav. So from the extra hey, that's how he knows it, because it didn't have to say haganav; it should have just said ganav. Ulamani Yama says the Gemara travayu b'toyin tanas ganav. The miat like toyin tanas ovid, because of the extra one, then ganav haganav my darshabay. What is he dashing with the extra hay? Amalach mibayle lekur Rabchia bar Abba am Rabbi Yochanan. He uses it for the drash of Rabchia bar Abba in the name Rabbi Yochanan. Am Rabchia bar Abba am Rabbi Yochanan. Hatoyin tanas ganav bepikadan. If you claim that if Baruch claims it was stolen, Mishalem Tashlum Kef. If I deposited by him a sheep or a ox, if after claiming that it was stolen, Tavach U'Mocher, Mishalem Tashlum Bava Kama, and that he learns out from the extra Hagana, that it's a chiddush, that if Baruch claimed that it was stolen, and then he went ahead and slaughtered it or sold it, he has to pay $1 for a sheep and hay for a shor. The extra hay, apke lemute tainus of it, he uses to exclude that it's only if Baruch claimed that it was stolen that he has to pay kefil, but if he claimed that it was lost and it's found by him, he doesn't pay kefil. Then the Rabchia bar Abba minole. How do we know that Baruch, if he claims it was stolen and then went ahead and slaughtered or sold it, he pays $1 v'hei? Amalach hekeshu. Because we juxtapose in this case because we have a hekish over here between Ganav and Toyin Tanas Ganav, because the pasuk, one talks about Ganav and one talks about Tayin Tanis Ganav, and it has them next to each other. They mashivan allocation. We don't ask on a hekesh, and therefore, just like by a Ganav, there's also not just kefil but dal v'hei. So the Tayin Tanis Ganav also pays dal v'hei. So Bishlam in Laman Yomer Chad Beganav v'Chad B'Tayin Tanis Ganav Shaper. El Laman Yomer Travaya B'Tayin Tanis Ganav. But according to the Man Yomer that says that both are talking about Tayin Tanis Ganav, Ganav Atzmai Minolei. How do we know that a Ganav himself pays kefil? So you'll say, well, isn't that a kal v'chaymer? If Baruch claims that it was stolen and we find it by him, he has to pay kefil, then if he stole it from somebody else, surely he has to pay kefil. Here it was by him as a deposit. But if he goes and breaks into somebody's house, he should surely pay kefil. If he didn't do an action, he just claimed it was stolen, he has to pay kefil. Then if he goes into somebody's house and steals it, he should surely pay kefil. Yeah, but then there would only be kefil with a shvua, because remember, Baruch, when he makes a claim that it was stolen, only pays with a shvua. But a thief, a ganav, doesn't have to swear. But if we learn it out from a kal v'chaymer, then we should say, Dayoy lovim min adin liyos kenadin. It's enough that ganav should be like the origin, Tayin Tanis Ganav, and malahalan b'shvua, just like over there it's with a shvua, afkan b'shvua. And the mais is, that's not the halacha. The halacha is, if you steal from someone's house, you have to pay kefil even if you didn't swear. So how we know it, we're going to talk about Im Yirtzeh Hashem Motzei Shabbos, because it's a continuous sugya. So we'll continue into this sugya on Motzei Shabbos. I did the Mishnah Yomis already, Rabbi Isai, because, believe it or not, we're doing a chok tonight.